Hello and welcome to another episode of Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. I'm Mia Saenz, and in this episode you get to meet Diana Eskander, and I'm excited to bring her to you. I've interviewed her before, but I'm excited to bring her to you because she is this beautiful bundle of self-love, and in her teachings it's really powerful because we know that when we don't exhibit or express or understand it, we can move into other relationships equally and as beautifully. So welcome, Diana. It's lovely to have you here.
So thank you for having me back. And as you might hear, there's a little toddler singing for us in the background.
Yay! I don't hear it at the moment, but sing away, baby.
I hope it just adds more joy to our lives and conversation.
It will. Lovely. Will you share with the audience how you came into this field? I'm sure we know why you love it, but share that too, because people who teach this work specifically have an incredible love for it, and there's a specific reason why.
Yeah. So I will say that this work very much found me at the age, from a very young age. So as my earliest memories, around 6, 7, 8 years old, I was writing so much poetry about like love, like really deep poetry about love, and writing songs. And my sister is 7 years older than me, and so her friends were about the same age. And so let's say I'm about 7 and they're 14 years old, and they would come home after school and form this circle around me and ask me relationship advice. And it's very funny to think back on, but I was a 9-year-old in a 1-year relationship. And I obviously went off and made my own sort of, I don't want to say mistakes, but I went on my own journey that deviated from some sort of that original knowing. And in 2014, I started to share online in a blog called Ask Diana. And I was sharing really about just being conscious and aware. And I was really just dabbling in this for fun. I wasn't reading much personal development, but then when I started to, I realized that I had actually been tapping into something that is like a collective wisdom. And I was writing every week, and I still do, and I was hosting meetups. And then really because I just wanted to have this conversation. And then someone asked me for a session, and then someone else asked me, and someone else asked me. And so I started to do this thing, and I was doing it for free. I was just playing, I was exploring, I was working with people. And then one day this woman asks me, "What's your rate?" And I just threw out a number, and that's when it all began. So I eventually took certifications in coaching and theta healing and as an ad heart facilitator, but it really started organically. It really and truly found me. And then as I started to engage, my energy in this was really, really building. My momentum was building. I had a thriving business before I even got a certification in the area. And so here I am 4 years later, doing work that it's hard to call it work. There are aspects of it that feel a bit more like work, but mostly, the reason, how do I even narrow it down to I'm doing what I feel absolutely called to do.
Love is magical. Love is magical. That's why you're doing it, because
I mean, the
it's
fact that I
serious.
get to talk about love and, the specific time that we're going through right now, there's a lot of fear. And to be able to have this massive outlet to share love beyond just going out into the world and smiling at people and choosing to approach every situation with love, I get to take all these women along with me. And there's nothing better I can imagine doing with this life, really and truly.
I love that. And it really shows. One thing that I love about love and teaching love and the interpersonal development is we actually look different than other people who don't experience this. Our faces seem to have less stress look. We seem to be brighter to people, like a light bright,
Yeah.
and so that's part of the magnificence right there. If you see somebody that looks different, there's a reason why. For me, before I even started seeing that and noticing it, I call it the fountain of youth. But before even that, people would say to me, "Wow, you are so passionate. Your eyes are so bright." So the point of that is take that, everyone, and push it forward, which is actually a beautiful segue into this conversation even more with Diana, because one of the things that I ask my guests what they'd like to talk about and things like that. And so one of them is about creating, it, actually the title is Creating Love You Want from the Inside Out. So let's talk about relationships with the mirror and the outer and inner, well, actually, I guess it's our inner world. Sorry, I misread that. And that makes more sense.
So this idea of creating love from the inside out is something that becomes more and more true and more real as I do this work and I work with women around the world, and I see this is just a universal truth. I'll start with an example with me. When I notice that there is something off in my marriage, we are not experiencing harmony, or there's this like, there's something in the air that isn't really flowing, before I ever even attempt to look at what he's doing, what he's done, what he could do better, I'm always looking at myself first and asking myself some really key questions like, how am I feeling? How have I been showing up? What have I been walking around distracted with? Have I paid any attention to my emotional state this week, these last few weeks? Have I soothed myself in here first? And what I always find is that when we are experiencing uneasiness in our relationship, it is without fail always a reflection of what I am walking around with, and him too. So we mirror each other, there's no question. That has been revolutionary, because even before my relationship and being married, what I saw was that every relationship ended the same. I would break up with this person and I'd say, you know, like I'm not getting what I want. And when I really stopped to look back at that, I mean, it's so obvious, but it isn't when we're in it. And what became really clear to me is that I'm not being appreciated because I don't appreciate myself.
Mm.
And we can all relate to moments like that, where someone is crossing our boundaries or taking us for granted because we are offering ourselves up on a silver platter without taking care of ourselves. So I didn't know who I was without a man, because I had always been in relationships. I didn't know how to create my own happiness. All of my sense of worthiness was attached to it being validated to me from an outside source. So what that meant was, the moment there was any threat to that, I fell apart. And then that would create, you know, it's the classic attachment clash. You know, it's like, I become needier, you pull away. I become needier, you pull away. And so the cycle continues.
Mm-hmm.
So when you realize that and you see, okay, the very thing I'm seeking from my partner or my partners is what I need to be giving myself. Down to, I remember working with a woman, she was in her 50s, and we talked about her marriage and her relationship since, and she, you know, it was always that she was kind of begging for their time and attention. And when I asked her, you know, do you enjoy your time alone? It's not always this obvious or clear cut. And she said, absolutely not. I dread weekends because I'm going to be by myself. I'm always looking to distract myself. And that's what the mirror was showing her.
Mm-hmm.
Until you enjoy your time with yourself, you're going to have these men who continue to force you to be alone. Mm-hmm. So that you can look that in the face and really acknowledge that when you start to heal that and you feel really good with yourself, you're so much more attractive mm-hmm. to everyone.
Right. Confidence is such a powerful thing, and men love confident women. Seriously. Yeah. Yes. There's nothing greater to them than finding a confident woman. Sometimes they struggle a little bit on their end, but it's beautiful. So that reflection work, you know, the inner work is very powerful. Thank you. So what's the biggest question that we need to ask ourselves in the way of how I show up?
What I like to do is really put on a very honest lens for a moment, and it's very uncomfortable. And, you know, yes, you want to look at yourself from a loving lens, but you also want to look at yourself quite honestly too, and just really map out, how have I been showing up? Mm-hmm. And how would I like to be showing up? Let me identify some really key gaps that I can start to fill. Because for my life to start reflecting what it is that I truly want, it's not even about what you're going to do, it's about who you are being. So if you are showing up frazzled and anxious and, calling your partner constantly or very distracted, whatever the case might be aware of it, accept it, have some self-compassion, sprinkle some self-forgiveness, and then look at how you would actually love to be showing up and start to bridge that gap piece by piece so that you don't see this huge mountain that you have to get over, but it's just one step at a time, becoming the woman you would love to be and who you imagine is in the type of thriving relationship that you would like to have.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting to look at ourselves like that, right? At first, can be very painful because we don't show up in the way that we would like to or that we think we do.
Yeah.
And part of this growth is really looking at that, isn't it? And saying, wow, this is amazing. I get to grow into this space. And then from that space, look again, wow, this is amazing. I get to grow into this space. It's more fun, right, when it's curiosity and a journey than how some people feel like, oh my God, and I was one of them in the beginning, oh my God, I don't want to look at that. I used to always say, bring it on, but not information about my mom, please. I don't want to grow in that area. I'm just going to let that go. And so it's interesting to be able to look at the full package of us as women individually, or men. Men are watching this too, I know, even though it's designed for women.
It's not an easy process, and it's a never-ending journey. But what I can say is that if you look forward to who you are becoming, and keep encouraging yourself that you are becoming that person, it does ease some of the discomfort of acknowledging where you are standing sort of today and how you have been showing up, and that it's okay, because sure, it's going to feel painful, but once you're truly aware of it, then you can make a different choice.
Yeah. It's celebrating those growth spots, isn't it? Because as we elevate up, we really do need to say, wow, I'm amazing, and understand what that is like, because we most certainly are different than what we were when we first started out. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because women get stuck in that, men do too. We get stuck as humans in that space of, I haven't, because they'll allow the monkey mind to talk or whatever, the chaos, and they can't focus in on the real beautiful aspect of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not a little
Yes, I can. So if you really think about who's beating up on you, who is being hard on yourself, when you really get clear about the fact that that is your inner child, that doesn't feel like they're quite enough, or they're doing enough, or that there's just something off, but when you give space to that child to really express their fears, and really like down to writing in a journal, and like I'll name my inner child, and it's a nickname that I had as a child. That's not what you can name it, anything. And ask her, how are you feeling today? And what are your fears? What's going on? And it's just like speaking to a child. How are you? You check in with them, and you're going to get a lot of different stuff. And when it's quite fear-based, which it often is, that's when I feel like I've given enough airtime to that voice. Then I invite in the other perspective, which for me is my most empowered self. And I have a name for her as well. And I will write out her name and say, I'd like you to weigh in on this. What's your perspective? And I can then start to see this other perspective. They're both true, but there's one that's a small, narrow-minded truth, and there's one that's a larger perspective truth. And that's the truth that I always want to eventually sink into, but you can't skip the step. That's what I used to do, and it's been a huge growing edge for me over the last year and a half. It was very easy for me to jump to the positive. But what I've allowed myself to do, and it's made all the difference in my growth, is really get comfortable with the uncomfortable and sinking into those fears and hearing them out and understanding them, because it is like a toddler. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets.
Mhm.
And so you need to give it some space. And then when it's had enough airtime, you invite in that other perspective and you move yourself into something that feels more empowered. And that's how you move through that.
It's really beautiful. And I love how you said about, so I do a lot of inner child work as well. And I haven't gone, I'm going to do your exercise because I haven't talked. I talk and I connect within a process that my clients do. And I do it for myself too. And I do honor the younger self, but really to focus in on my childhood name,
Mhm.
and when you were saying, and your higher self, I've got both names, baby.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm
you
I'm
do.
going to do that because I'm going to use that for the next, and everybody do this for the next 30 days. And please write us and tell us your progress. We have a lot going on our planet right now. And so for the next 30 days, take this exercise, talk to your younger self, look at it from your, as your developed self, your queen, that's my name. And
Mhm.
so literally it's because that's how I honor myself. You may call yourself priestess, you may call yourself goddess, whatever you call yourself, it is you, and allow that to soak in. And then let us know how you're doing, because it will remove the fear quickly when you observe the fear and you shift it into the higher self. Do you have anything to add to that, Diana? What you think that?
I would just like to give a little example. A couple of weeks ago, I was at my desk and I wasn't seeing any clients that day. It was a day dedicated to writing content. And I felt uneasy. I felt uneasy. I felt uncomfortable. I felt lonely. Um, I couldn't shake this feeling until I heard, like, drop what you're doing and go move your body, go outside. So I spent some time walking and like moving through it and feeling it, like, okay, I'm feeling lonely today. I'm not quite sure why. Like, what is that about? What is this uneasiness? And really spending time with it. And I came back and I was able to do a bit of work. And then the next day I was journaling and I was asking Nana, my younger self, how are you feeling today? And she was like, great. You gave me exactly what I needed. You paid attention. I have nothing left to say. Like, you allowed me to go there. And so some days she's not going to be that scared. Our children aren't scared at every moment, right? But they do carry a lot of fear. And so don't be afraid that it's always going to be heavy. It might be if this is new to you, because she or he has a lot to say, oh, decades of catching up to do with you. So you might be uncomfortable for a while, but it will get easier.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And you have a special gift for us. Would you like to share that?
I do. So I wrote this guide. It's 6 sneaky ways you've been sabotaging your love life and didn't even know it. So I love a catchy title because it's fun and it allows it to be light, instead of feeling heavy. And the reason that I wrote this is because I hosted a mastermind last year. We were 12 women inside of there. And some of the aha moments and the revelations that came up were quite transformational. Things like having sex when I don't really want to with someone new. I mean, it seems so obvious, but it's something that is so commonly accepted
Mhm, mhm.
that it wasn't even like these women had never realized that that is actually getting in the way of them feeling connected with this person because they're not connecting with themselves. So it's things like that, that there are things that you maybe haven't considered that are actually closing the doors to deeper connection and to you really finding that person for you. So I name out some of the ways and then some of the sort of fixes that go along with it. So hopefully you find it useful.
I like that. And we do, as women, have issues around sex like that. And the moment you step forward in a new space of empowerment, your life will change, literally, doesn't it? Yeah, it
Mhm.
all goes together.
Yeah.
You've shared so much, but I'd like to ask you this. What's on your heart and mind, or heart or mind, that you'd like to share with us right now before we say goodbye?
It's hard for me not to bring in sort of the time that we're in right now. So it might not be hopefully as relevant in a few weeks, but there's a lot of fear with this pandemic that's spreading across the globe. And what I'm feeling really called to say is to just choose love. So when you see someone on the street, maybe they cough or they come from a certain part of the world that makes you nervous and you want to judge, remember that we're all in this together, and we have an opportunity right now to recalibrate. And instead of looking in the direction of fear and how you might get sick and how the world might change and how businesses might fall apart, you can choose another lens. And you can literally imagine putting on your lenses of love and seeing the world from that perspective, seeing yourself, making choices. Let's say if you're choosing to sort of hunker down and stay home and, go within. Go within and make the choice out of love for self and others, not out of fear.
That's really beautiful. It's so apropos, and it's really beautiful. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I always love talking to you.
Yes, I love talking to you too, Diana. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of Make Love Real. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.